Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's broadcast. Honish, David Bartels. This broadcast is sponsored by everhome.io. Visit everhome.io. My name's Honish. I am a professional marketer, content guy, working on being a brand ambassador. We'll see how that goes. I'll start with you, David. First and foremost, let's talk about Everhome, our proud and happy sponsor.
Well, Everhome is a technology company that does real estate. We actually are launching a new software at the first of the month that allows sellers to leverage technology to sell their home in the same way buyers have been using technology to buy a home for many years. The invention of Zillow 20 years ago.
And how can people find out more?
Well, you can go to everhome.io, or you can email me at david@everhome.io.
Simple as that. Let's start right there and talk about being a data-driven real estate agent, someone who comes into your company. I want to start right there because I truly think that this is the future of real estate. For those of you listening for the first time, this show is based on disruption and trends and the news and trying to stay on the cutting edge. So let's talk about the future of real estate where you are data-driven, where you are cutting down costs and making it more appealing to a potential buyer or seller. So let's talk about this from a seller's perspective. How does the lead network for the Everhome website?
How does the lead network? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, so first of all, how does a seller get caught in the initial net, technologically speaking?
Gotcha. So, there's a number of ways. So what we know from many years of business in general is that just because you build a better mousetrap doesn't mean people will beat a path to your door to buy it. You've got to go out and sell it. And so you do that through a variety of methods. This podcast is an example of us wanting to reach real estate professionals to advise them about what we're doing and the opportunities, the professional opportunities that are available for them that are interested in being involved. So that would obviously be one way. You've got email marketing, you've got web marketing, you've got direct mail marketing. There are a lot of methods out there for getting the word out about when you're doing something cool and revolutionary like we are.
Okay, so somebody comes into this, they go in through a drip cycle. If I'm an agent, am I put into a rotation when a client is interested in selling their home?
Well, if you engage with us and all right, so let's say that you see an ad on Facebook or a pay-per-click. You're thinking about selling a home, you see an ad, you click on it, you register to get more information, and you decide not to go ahead and list your house online yourself in about 20 minutes, like our platform allows you to do, and you want to think about it. Well, what happens then? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
All right, and so from there, you would begin a series of drip marketing campaigns, direct mail marketing campaigns, phone campaigns. We actually have agents will be calling to follow up to see if we can figure out where the resistance points were and overcome those by providing them new information and ask them to make a new decision based on that new information. It's really an all-out full service marketing effort in order to convert them. We are not waiting for them to sign up. We hope they will, but we're actually going to engage them and see if we can nudge them along to signing up.
Nudge, technical word.
Exactly.
I like it. So with all of that said, if I'm an agent listening to this, and that's the bulk of our audience by far, what is the proposition to me joining Everhome in California or when it starts to become a national product?
So, for agents, we're hiring two kinds of agents right now, and maybe three different relationships. So Number one, for agents that are in Ventura County or in the Los Angeles County area, we need full service agents to represent people who want to be serviced by a traditional agent, either as a buyer or a seller. So that's one way, and it's just, and we give people, agents, the option to work with a salary plus commission or a straight commission basis. And our opportunity is, not only are our product offerings unique and special and easy to sell from a competitive perspective, but we also generate all the leads, handle all the marketing, pay all the expenses that are associated with it, and handle all the transaction coordination. So an agent's responsibility is simply lead nurture, lead conversion, and putting transactions in escrow. So for agents who don't want to be in the business of real estate, whereby they've got to generate their own leads, create their own branding, you know, follow up on all those, those leads, and keep everything organized, do all their own selling, their transaction coordinating. For people who just don't want to be in, they just want to do real estate, don't want to be in the business of real estate, we would be a really great fit for them. The second way that we do it is that we are actually in the process of recruiting the top agents from all over the country, but primarily in California, in order to handle a pipeline of people who are taking advantage of our listed with owner program. So our listed with owner program basically is a hybrid program between for sale by owner and a 5 or 6% listing. So, for sale by owner sellers are unrepresented. Full service, 8% of sellers are selling for sale by owner. 92% of sellers are selling with an agent, and about 70% of people who list their house for sale by owner end up hiring a full service, full fee agent to assist them with that transaction. And so what we did is we created the best of both worlds. We charge $450 up front. That covers our administrative costs of getting in the MLS. We handle the seller disclosures with them to get them all done, get their house on the multiple listing service. They show the house, they answer the questions about their house. So they get the flexibility, control, and cost savings of for sale by owner, but also the massive exposure that comes from listing your house on the multiple listing service and the syndication that comes with that. The second phase of that, though, is that when an offer comes in, that offer does not go to the seller. That the seller is not unrepresented. That offer comes to us or the licensed agent that's working with them, and we step in and fully represent them in the negotiations, the escrow, the title, the contingency removals, just as if they were paying us 5 or 6%, and then we get another $2,500 at the close of escrow. So the way that our system works is that we've got 3 agents feeding 3 inside sales agents. They don't even have to be licensed. We can actually hire great phone salespeople in order to pitch this simple program to potential sellers. We push them to the application where they sign up. They self-sign the listing application and then put the information into the MLS. And then we need agents to onboard them, licensed agents to onboard them. Introduce, I'm going to be your agent. In other words, we're just going to hand you a listing. If you're an agent, we hand you a listing, and then you take it from there. You basically are answering their questions, handling the negotiations, and putting them in escrow. And then once it gets in escrow, you hand it off to a transaction coordinator who finishes the deal. And so these agents can handle about 30 transactions a month, and they're being fed by a sales team, an upfront sales team, who is giving them 10 to 15 new listings per month. So the agent in this scenario doesn't even have to do the heavy lifting on the listing. They're simply acting as the team leader, responsible primarily for the negotiations, and then pushing it off to a transaction coordinator to get it done. And so that's another position that we need for people who don't want to be out in the field, that love real estate negotiations, love the customer service aspect of helping somebody sell a home. That is a great opportunity for them. Again, it comes with a salary plus commission basis. And then the third option that we have is basically a referral partner. So in those areas of the state outside of Ventura and LA counties where we don't have agents on the ground, we're doing referrals, for buyers and sellers in other parts of the state, or we're co-brokering those transactions with them in order to provide the Everhome experience to them throughout the state and very soon throughout the country. So that is a long-winded explanation. I'm exhausted just by telling you, but that we covered a lot of ground.
Well, I'll exhaust you more. It sounds like you went to the trouble of just what I'm hearing. You created an amalgamation of the best parts of Redfin, the best parts of your own personal and very successful brokerage, and Zillow, and kind of took the best of these elements and studied them, knowing you, studied them, flipped them over, and then compiled them into what Everhome is. Am I reading that correctly?
Oh, for sure. That's what happened. But the way we got there was that we were really just listening to our clients. In the beginning, when I started with Help You Sell, just based on the legacy of Help You Sell, I was getting calls from people saying, "Hey, my tenant wants to buy my house. Can you help me?" And I'd say no. And then I'd get a call saying, "Hey, how much does it cost just to put you in the multiple listing service?" I said, "No, I don't. That's not what we do." And after saying no a few times, somebody came in with a buyer already wanting us to help with the paperwork. And I said, "Okay, sure. $3,000. We'd be happy to do it." And they said, "Okay." And about 15 minutes later, we were in escrow. And I gave it to a transaction coordinator, went smooth as pie. We probably spent 3, 4, 5 hours on the transaction over the next 30 days getting the deal done. We got a check for $3,000. And I'm like, man, that was the easiest money I ever made. And I mean, I literally didn't spend more than 30 minutes personally on the account, the entire month. And then we did another one, then we did another one, and we did another one. And about last summer, I said, you know what, if we could do 30 of these a month, generate about $100,000 in income, I said I would never list a house again. And we decided to kind of hit the gas on that. And now with our prototype team, we are signing up about one a day. We're well on track with our first team to be able to do 30 transactions in a month, in addition to all the other things that we're doing. And the reason we built the technology was to get the customers to onboard themselves and to better collaborate with sellers on the selling of their house. And then in January, we've got a public offering that is designed to raise the funds to go public. And well, we are going public to go national after that. So yeah, we studied the best of both worlds. And if you're thinking about what our trajectory looks like, look at Redfin. We're a very similar model, but Redfin except Redfin started with great buyer tech. We are starting with great seller tech. But the same, referral business, salaries plus commissions, national expansion, plenty of money to do all the things that they need to do in order to build a brand and to improve customer engagement. Those are all the same things that we're planning to do.
There you go. How can people find out more?
Well, you can reach out to us if you're thinking about professional opportunities with us. It'd be david@everhome.io is a good way to reach us. You could also reach me. My cell phone number is 818-929-6830. 818-929-6830. Yes, I do answer it.
And if you missed any of that, check the links. I always add links. With all of that said, if you'd like to be here and be able to ask us questions or be involved and pop up anything, go to coachingcalls.info, coachingcalls with an S.info. Plus our catalog is available. It is deep and it is vast, which takes us to our featured story of the day. And this show is about disruptions and trends because that is the real estate market, knowing how to ride them like a wave. Don't believe me? Go talk to your mortgage broker who will tell you about the refinance boom that's been going on for quite some time. Today's story comes from the Wall Street Journal, David, which means we're talking national. Andrew Ackerman of the Wall Street Journal, as of September 21st, 1 million mortgage borrowers fall through the COVID-19 safety net. We were trying to see if we could get away from not talking about COVID, David and I, in our discussions, and talking distressed properties. But this story just blasted me in the face, so I thought it was worth talking about, David. About 1 million homeowners have fallen through the safety net Congress set up early in the coronavirus pandemic to protect borrowers from losing their homes, according to industry data, potentially leaving them vulnerable to foreclosure or eviction. Homeowners with federally guaranteed mortgages can skip monthly payments for as long as a year without penalty and make up later. They must call their mortgage companies to ask for the relief, known as a forbearance, though they aren't required to prove hardship. That's important. Many people instead have fallen behind on their payments, David, digging themselves deeper into financial hole through an accumulation of missed payments and late fees. They could be at risk of losing their homes once the national and local restrictions of evictions and foreclosures expires in January. Here are the quotes. Some borrowers are falling through the cracks that we're not picking up, said Lisa Wright, president and chief executive of the National Fair Housing Alliance. It's just really sad series of events. Before I get into the technical numbers of it, David, we had thought, and we've talked about it repeatedly on this show, because this show's a derivative of our longstanding work of working with distressed homeowners, and you and I both felt that the forbearance agreement and those things were basically going to settle the ship. And now it looks like people didn't even take the trouble of calling, well, certainly 1 million by their records, and I'll read the data in a second. 1 million people in the United States have decided they didn't make the call. I mean, let's just keep it simple. So on any given day prior to this event, you were looking at about, just for everybody to understand it, anywhere from 3 to 4 million people missing payments at various links at any given moment. We're talking about a 25% increase, plus or minus, based on the epidemic. And that's a huge jump in default numbers. So let's talk about this from a trend perspective, David. This sounds like a focus point if I were an agent or even an agent with your company. Where do we go from here? This is no longer about calling your bank. You're already behind. These people are obviously not making phone calls and believing something mythical about it. So let's kind of talk advocacy and the approach here and talking about this data. How do you perceive this data?
Well, all right. So, this, takes me back to the height of the 2008, 2009 crisis. Now, I just don't believe that the magnitude of this situation is even remotely similar based on the market conditions that we have now versus the market conditions we had then. Having said that, however, we do know from history that homeowners who fall behind on their mortgages and maybe their bills in general have a tendency to put their head in the sand and hide. They don't want to deal with the reality. They don't want to make the phone calls, and they just hope that it's going to work out. So when this first started, the number one thing that we were advising people to do, that especially professionals who were advising homeowners that were reaching out to them concerned, was to tell them to call their bank and get on a forbearance plan. I mean, that was the one condition of getting in this forbearance plan, is that you had to call the bank and communicate with them. And they were all given 3-4 months, without any with any kind of proof or verification that you were in need of a forbearance. And then with some proof after that, most lenders, certainly Freddie and Fannie owned loans, they were getting forbearances and extended, for a total of 12 months, so 9 more months. So that means that we're really not going to see the brunt of this until, next year. The other thing that I think about is, so for even for those people who didn't call, this million people that you were talking about, the reality is they can probably still call their bank, plead ignorance, ask for forgiveness, and probably get it. And then the third thing that I think that we have to think about, and that really complicates the things, is that there is a foreclosure moratorium that's still on and looks like it's going to remain on at least through January, which means there's almost nothing anybody can do about it. And whatever wave of foreclosures that there might be is not going to happen at least for another year. And so from an advocacy perspective, what we simply want to do is give home sellers the very best advice that we can give them. And that is, you need to talk to your bank. You need to tell them what's going on. You need to get into some formal workout program, whether or not it's a forbearance or a loan modification, or deferred payments of some sort, or a repayment plan. There are plans out there that they can help you, but that's only going to work for, those repayment plans only work for people who are employed and can afford to make some sort of payment. And by the way, there's a whole another issue happening on the rental side of the deal,
Right.
that we're not even talking about right now. But that's the set from an advocacy perspective. That's the set one. Now, from a professional, whether, I think part of the question is implied here is, are there going to be a bunch of foreclosures hitting the market? And I'm still not certain about that, but I was reading an article just this morning that the source was also the Wall Street Journal. It came from Realtor Magazine, where they're saying that as of September 6th, there were 3.5 million loans in forbearance. So I don't know if what you're saying means that
These are a million
there's
people,
a
at
million
least 30
people who are
days.
just in foreclosure,
Yep.
that didn't even ask for forbearance. They're actually in foreclosure as opposed to a
Correct.
forbearance. And so
Correct.
that 3.5 million represents 7% of all home loans. That's a massive number.
Yep.
The same article is already stating that investors are preparing for a wave of houses coming on the market. Now,
Yep.
houses coming on the market is not the same thing as foreclosures. What
Yep.
what houses coming on the market means is that a lot of sellers who are in a much better equity position than they were 10 years ago. Most sellers are going to realize that they can no longer, that they're still not able to make their mortgage payment. Their forbearance plan is running out, and that they really have no choice but to get their house on the market and sell it and try to get as much cash out of the walls of their house as they can, as opposed to losing the house to foreclosure. And I think that you're going to see a lot of sales take place, a lot of inventory coming on the market as sellers grapple with the reality of the fear of not being able to keep their house as a result of not being employed at the level they were prior to the crisis. And certainly, we also know that in spite of the obvious benefits of selling, getting out ahead of it and selling the house on your own versus spending every last nickel you have to save a house that you ultimately end up losing, there will be some people who hold on, and there will be an uptick in actual foreclosures. But that probably won't happen much until we get to the middle of next year. So there's not really much to do right now, but there is likely to be an uptick, but I don't think it's going to be the avalanche of homes that we saw in 2008, 9, and 10 before the run up in 2011, which was started by the investors. And by the way, and this is ultimately going to be good for housing, because investors are standing on the sideline, and it's anticipated they're planning to buy 10% or more of all the listings that come on the market
Yep.
as a result of this next year.
So to your point, The new here it is. Housing counselors say many borrowers don't know about forbearance, that forbearance is an option. Others are afraid of reaching out to the lender, and still others have trouble navigating the complex bureaucracy of mortgage finance. Sue Stevenson, a mortgage default counselor near Seattle, said some lenders and servicing companies make little effort to help borrowers. Reason I bring this up, David, as a realtor, part of the job is being an advocate. We've talked about it historically a lot. I see this as a data point and an opportunity for agents, right? To this is my historical feedback on coaching and working with real estate agents. We all want the listing. We all want the buyer who's ready to go. Instead of looking at, if I help this person and give them good advice, even if it's for them getting a forbearance agreement, will that pay dividends later on? And I have preached and tried to work in my own business life, much like yourself. 99% of what you do for free, it's the 1% that will pay you. I see this as an opportunity, certainly on a trend, because whether or not we want to accept what the real numbers are, or how it plays out, or when it hits, or are the investors going to buy it out the back door of a bank? Will they ever hit a market? Yada, yada, yada. That's all it really, that's just playing a speculation game. Let's go with what's realistic. Somebody like the Wall Street Journal puts out this is going to leak onto CNBC. They'll quote this article. Fox will probably pick up on it, and they can put a spin on it their direction, as CNN will put it in their direction. But homeowners in general are going to get some variation of this information. The point I'm trying to make is, from a real estate agent perspective, this is an opportunity to step in, right, and create a unique relationship with nothing more than the data point happening, the trend happening nationally, because this will get exposure. This will become something that actually gets picked up on the national wire. If the Wall Street Journal isn't big enough for you to believe, I guarantee whatever form of media you prefer, a left or a right view of the market, this is a story that has angles from both sides. I would say to an agent, all you're talking about doing is creating a relationship and working from that relationship. That relationship will ultimately bring you business. I would like to hear your feedback on creating good relationships, giving good advice, being an advocate, right? And just giving simple help, and how that pays off in the long run.
Well, the question that I would ask people is, what do you want your brand to be?
Right.
What do you want to be known for in your community? Do you want to be known for as the person who's only interested in making, a buck off the backs of people who are been beaten down, and are on the verge of losing their home? Or do you want to be an advocate of helping them make the best out of a difficult situation? I mean, if you think about the fiduciary that we have as real estate agents, now investors don't have this fiduciary. When they're representing themselves in a negotiation, their mission, their business is to buy low and sell high. I'm talking about realtors. My primary responsibility as a professional real estate agent, forget whether or not I'm a realtor of the National Association of Realtors, is to have a fiduciary responsibility to the people that I'm helping. And I take that fiduciary very seriously, whether or not I have a signed agency agreement with them or not. So I just always find that the best way to run my business is to provide the best advice to people that I could possibly provide, whether or not I'm getting paid to provide that advice or not, whether or not that advice is going to lead them to not selling or buying a house. My job is to give them the best possible advice that I can possibly give them. And that's what I'm going to continue to do over and over again. And this business has been very good to me, and I have benefited greatly financially as a result of being in the real estate business. And I feel like it's an important part of my business to give back to my community as part of our public outreach, in order to be a source of assistance for people who need it. And And having said all that, there is a countless number of referrals and transactions that I have been able to do as a result of a sincere effort to help people understand what their options are. When people are calling me asking for help, I know that was a referral from somebody else. I don't always know who it's come from, but I love having the reputation in our community of being a resource that people can go to in order to get any question about real estate answered without feeling an obligation to do a transaction with us. So I would highly recommend the same for everybody.
And lastly, let's talk about this from just a sheer numbers mathematical proposition. Marketing is math. There's no sleight of hand to how this works. Greatest number of people you approach whittles down into certain numbers. They fall into, to me, marketing is strictly math. The skill that all of you have is, and I'll say it simply, a skill that I simply do not have, of being able to relate to clients. And that's, for all of you listening, that is your greatest skill set. Your greatest skill set is to understand your relationship with your clients, either buyers or sellers. And I bring all that up to explain the math of this. A recent survey of the National Housing Resource Center found that 56.6% of the respondents didn't know about the forbearance program. An even larger share of the consumers were confused about their options, including 69.9% who said they feared being required to make a large lump payment at the end of the forbearance agreement. That's strictly an education point with homeowners.
For sure. Definitely.
And at the end of the day, as someone who has been approved to be a coach and a trainer, myself being in multiple states, the National Association of Realtors makes it abundantly clear one of the functions of you as a realtor, I'd say as a real estate agent, and probably as a human being, isn't to make the sale, and that's what we're talking about here. It's to educate your clients. And if you educate them and build the relationship, as David said, you're going to get more clients. This isn't even, me explaining the math of more than half the people who own homes don't even know that they can do this, whether or not they can make the payments. I had this conversation. I've talked about it on previous broadcasts. I have a friend who recently refinanced his home to one of the lower rates in Las Vegas, got laid off and was actually going into the field of real estate, and used it as an opportunity. And he said, "What do you think about me calling?" I said, "Why wouldn't you call? What's the worst that they can tell you?" And he actually asked all the right questions that I gave to him. I said, ask him if it's going to affect your credit. See if your particular federally insured lender, if it's going to affect your credit. He goes, it's not. Goes, and he did all the work, and he called me back. He goes, it's not going to affect my credit. I said, then why wouldn't you take a forbearance program? If they're going to give you 6 months, tack it to the back end of your brand new loan. What's 6 months on a brand new 5-year or 10-year refinance? It's a no-brainer option.
But the end of the loan is probably 30 years.
Right.
And
particularly, right.
So, I mean, that's a long time to accumulate that money, assuming you get to the finish line and pay that mortgage off without refinancing it or buying a different house.
I agree. Everybody who's asked me on almost every level, I had a friend say this, and I said, call your credit card company, you just call. That's really the biggest step. Just call and ask these questions. And I've seen the pushback. I have a friend specifically who gave me pushback. I don't feel right about it. I have the ability to pay. Okay, I get that. But when you're talking these long-term installment payment loans and they're putting it on the backside, ask them questions. Is it accruing interest? Is it accruing late fees exponentially throughout the years? These are really simple questions that they can answer for you. This doesn't need a hired supervisor. And there genuinely is a fear of making these kinds of phone calls. And I just see it as an opportunity for real estate professionals to step in and be an advocate for people. And to me, it's mind-boggling that people aren't taking these opportunities. And again, I believe in relationship building. I think that's the strongest form of business, period. Going back to my core beliefs of 99% of what you do is free, 1% will pay you, and it will be more than enough money to provide for you. So go and educate. How, I guess my real question is, how do we get out of this? They're not ready to buy or sell right now. I don't have time for them. And I know you go back to the word brand. Again, we're talking about that years of doing the traditional real estate model, David. And I guess that's why I'm kind of geeked up about Everhome and just try something different. Even if it's wrong, try something different.
I don't think that sales and marketing is that complicated. I think that we overthink it and overcomplicate it. I'm going to give you the definition of sales and marketing success. Okay, and if people can just get this, it might change the way they view their business. Marketing is finding people to sell. That's it.
That's
Selling is selling the people you find. That's it. That's your whole business. Finding people to sell and selling the people you find. Now, if you're not very good at finding people to sell, then you've got to start at the beginning. You got to pick one thing and you got to do it better than everybody else. And the way, now I have many ways that we find people to sell now, but when I started, I had one way. And so when I started, it was at the height of the foreclosure crisis, and I started with your monster marketing program and started tagging and doing all that right now. But when I say I started, I should say I added. The first thing that I did, and the one thing is, and I recommend to everybody, is I compiled the names, email addresses, and phone numbers of every single person I knew. I dumped my Facebook page. I dumped my LinkedIn. I dumped my phone. I dumped all my business cards. Everything, and I got them in the one place, and I started communicating to them what I was doing and how I was doing it. And then once I got a little traction, and it can be as simple as a monthly newsletter that, heck, my newsletter just went out this morning. It went out to 15,000 people in my database, and it cost me $45 to do it. I didn't write a single article. I didn't do anything. They did the whole thing. They sent it out, and now I'm getting lead alerts from people who are engaging on subject matter that leads me to believe that we might want to have a conversation with them about buying or selling a house. Okay, and so those are really very easy steps, and it doesn't have to be hardcore sales messaging. A lot of it is just gentle reminders in the form of information that people might do. When COVID hit and they started talking about forbearance, the first thing that I did was sit down and crafted an email that I might send to a friend or acquaintance, explaining what forbearance meant and what they ought to, if they were impacted by it, what they should do. And I just sent it to everybody. And I got a bunch of thank yous from people. I didn't get any business from it, but I got a lot of thank yous as a result of sending that. And I nurtured a relationship, even a relationship with people who I don't have a close relationship with. I was able to engage with them at a higher level by offering them something to value and not asking for anything in exchange, just offering to be of service. And now that's not to suggest that my marketing doesn't have any ask in it. It sure does. But we bait our marketing with hyperlinks that are going in our emails, so we know when they click those emails. As it's one thing to have an email open, it's another thing to have them click through, and then we follow up with them, and we're at the right place at the right time. And we're in the middle of a pandemic. I know sales are up all across the country, but our business, we've never had more transactions in escrow than we have right now. It's a little mind-blowing, real. It's surreal to not be able to go out in public without a mask, yet have the volume of business that we do, and to see the multiple offers and the number of showing requests that you get on every single listing. So you got to start somewhere. You start with your database, and then you add something else, and then you get that going, and then you add something else. Hopefully you're getting that stuff on autopilot, or you're hiring an assistant to help you on a part-time basis to do some of that stuff. Because at the end of the day, marketing doesn't pay the bill, sales does. So remember, marketing is just the first half of the equation, finding people to sell. And then you've got to have a conversion plan in place. And if you don't have a conversion plan in place, you shouldn't be marketing at all, because there's no greater waste of time and money if you're not going to convert the opportunities that you have.
With all of that said, again, go to coachingcalls.info if you'd like to watch or listen back episodes of this particular broadcast. If you'd like to send a question to us, perfectbluestudio@gmail.com. Now, with all that said, our proud sponsor, everhome.io. David, give out all the info.
Well, you can go to everhome.io, of course, and learn more about what we're doing. Our world-beating app, List Your House Yourself in 20 Minutes, is not going to be up until October 5th, but you can learn more about some of our other programs there. You can also email me at david@everhome.io or call me at 805-379-3300. I'm happy to be of assistance.
And that'll do it for this week. I want to thank everybody for being on the call. Those of you that are here live, load up a couple of quick questions, and we'll talk to you in a second. Hit the button, David.